Hello and welcome once again to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. This is an episode that's going to have another segment of Keeper of the Greens. I'm really excited to bring it to you. This is episode number 35. Now, just before we get stuck into Keeper of the Greens, I want to just bring your attention to partners of the podcast. Keeper of the Greens is brought to you by Australian Turf Analysis. And as a greenkeeper, as a golf course superintendent, I know that when it comes to agronomy, our industry has always been using tools at the forefront of science and technology. And the latest in that technology comes to you from Australian Turf Analysis and their multispectral lens drone. Now, I will say this, I'm just going to jump this in the middle. I was just down and I went and saw Australian Turf Analysis and John League getting out to Camden Golf Club in Sydney Southwest, and I got to see in detail how they do one of these surveys, and it is really sensational stuff. There were golfers out on golf course playing and enjoying the day. It was a wonderful day. Superintendent Justin and his team were out there doing all their work as usual, and yet here we are. John's out there from Australian Turf Analysis just doing a survey. Didn't bother anyone. Just got on with the job. It's so quick and so easy. So to go and see it happening was really, really insightful, and just so good to see how pinpoint accurate this stuff is. It really is on the cutting edge of technology. Now, with a drone flight over your course, Australian Turf Analysis can show you what is happening all before it's visible to the trained eye of a greenkeeper. The multispectral lens, along with intelligent software, measures turf stress and correlates the data for you in a very easy-to-read graphic map, along with a few other formats that are available. Now, you might think that some of the latest scientific tools like this are a bit pricey, but I can assure you that once you get a quote to survey your course, you will be searching for reasons why you shouldn't use this technology to help maintain your golf course. It really is that affordable, and that's why you need to go and get in touch with John so he can show you just what it is and how easy it is to access this sort of technology. John League at Australian Turf Analysis is your certified and fully insured drone pilot to make sure all those paperwork bases are covered so you don't have to worry no matter where you are in Australia. Now for the good part, guys, for any new first-time customers of Australian Turf Analysis, yes, they are offering a 10% discount on your first service if you mention the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. So head on over to www.australianturfanalysis.com to get in touch with John for a quote for your golf course. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. It really is that affordable, and it really is that helpful to help you as a greenkeeper and as a superintendent to do your job better and maintain your course better. So get over there now and get in touch with John. Ladies and gentlemen, we come once again to Keeper of the Green segment of the podcast, of the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. I welcome you along to listen and join in a conversation and discussion. And I have on the line with me, we're going to a state that we haven't visited yet. We're going to head down to the southern parts of Australia into Victoria, the wonderful golf state that is Victoria, as we know, into Melbourne. And I have on the line Superintendent Peter Cawsey from Eastwood Golf Club. G'day, Peter. Welcome, mate.
G'day, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Mate, thank you for coming along. Now, this is a bit of a first for me, I will be honest, mate. I previously, not that long ago, I didn't know you. I don't know your golf course. I've never been to Eastwood, and I say sadly so because I love visiting golf courses all over the place. Mate, we got in touch and I invited you onto the podcast. I want to learn a bit about your story, mate. Thank you very much for coming along. Have you done this sort of thing before? Have you ever done a podcast?
No, this is the first. So this is the this is
a world first for Pete. Here we go. Very good, mate. And incidentally, I think we've been chatting a little bit in time, and you watched a bit of the race, the Bathurst 1000, not so long ago, mate. I think we were chatting about that too. So that was a good weekend just a couple of weekends ago. Always adds a bit of something good to get away from work and from golf every now and then. So I think that's a good thing too.
A good excuse to sit in front of the TV and drink some beers too, isn't it?
Oh, mate, nothing, and you're dead right. I love that side of it too. But I was sitting at home eating. I don't know if you saw or if anyone listening heard me as well recently. I was sitting back just sucking on a jar of honey from Glenelg Golf Club in South Australia. So it's a bit random. But I was excited by it. Something a little bit different. But mate, I'm going to start off. We'll dive into your story. We'll dive into Eastwood a little bit. But first is a bit of fun, Steve's Super 7 questions. You ready to roll?
Yeah, hit me with them.
All right, mate, let's go. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise. Unless I'm in Hawaii and I'm on the beach, it'd be sunset.
Oh, wow. Now, that's just the place I wasn't expecting to hear for a sunset. I think most people could well and truly handle that sort of a sunset.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Now, we'll start off with some course appearance questions, and we're going to go with stripes or no stripes on fairways.
This sort of changes for me. At the moment, I'm no stripes, so I'm sort of going down that cleaner look.
And do you find we'll just dive into this a little bit while we're here. Do you find that it's a bit of a seasonal climate thing with your golf course there at Eastwood? If it's a bit more wet, a little bit more rainfall, do you go a different way as opposed to if it's a bit drier? Do you have that, or what's the reason behind it?
I think part of it at the moment for us is it's probably a time-saving thing. It's a bit quicker mowing them without the stripes than it is with the stripes. But yeah, sometimes it if you can't get those stripes burnt into the fairways really well, they don't tend to look that good. So it just sometimes looks a bit better without them. Yeah,
fair enough. And obviously that, like you said, it's for your golf course and for how you want Eastwood to look. It's something that you bring out. So, mate, very interesting. Always good to hear the reasons behind, which I do like. Now, preferred look of an overall course, lean or lush?
I like the lush. I like the deep green and the white sand in the bunkers and all that kind of stuff. So the lush for me.
Just the real standout presentation, which is something that look, that's what we do for a living as greenkeepers at the end of the day, is a presentation, and it's a certain style. So that's good, mate. Now, what about favourite green surface? Bent grass, couch grass, or something else, which if it is, you need to name it?
Well, I would have said bent grass. Obviously, but courses I've been at previously were bent grass, and then obviously Eastwood's a mixture of bent and polar, and I'm actually quite enjoying the surface we get out of that bent and polar at the mix at the moment. So I'll stick with that.
Bent and polar, nice, and that's something that we have heard quite a bit too. So that's what you've got at Eastwood. That's very very interesting to hear. We go to number 5. Where do you prefer to maintain a golf course? Cool climate or warm climate?
I haven't experienced a warm climate course yet, so I'll probably stick with the cool at the moment. So,
okay, very good. Favorite bunker style, mate? This one's always one that I love to hear the answers for, and I think a lot of people listening do. St Andrews, Kingston Heath, or Augusta National?
I'll probably stick with the Heath, I think.
Very, very nice. I think it's a good Aussie one. It's a good Aussie one, that one. And finally, mate, one last one to kick off the fun. If you could visit one golf course anywhere in the world tomorrow, which one would it be?
I would have said St Andrews, but I'm married to a Scottish person, and we went over there for a holiday, so we've sort of walked around St Andrews and Canoosti and stuff like that. So this one's this one's a little bit different than anyone that I've heard for a while or anything. Is Wolf Creek in Nevada?
Oh, Wolf Creek, right. There you go. Where does that come from?
Well, I've just seen some photos of it sort of out in the desert and stuff like that. It just looks pretty impressive with all of the sand and stuff around it, and then all of the deep green fairways in amongst it all. So it's just it looks good in the photo. So I just think
high contrast.
And probably near Las Vegas as well. So it'd be an excuse to go to the casinos.
A nice part of the world to visit, on top of having to see a nice golf course to boot.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very good, mate. All right, well, that's the bit of fun, and I always like to see, and I think our listeners love to compare their thoughts with what they're hearing as well, which is always very interesting, mate. So thank you. Well done. Now, let's kick off. Pete. Let's learn a little about your story, mate, where you've come from and how you got to where you are today. And we'll start at the beginning for you, mate. Tell us all and explain to us how you got into greenkeeping as a trade for yourself. Where did it begin for you, Pete?
Well, I coming out of school doing year 12, I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself, and it probably was evident in the subjects that I'd chosen at school. I think I did mechanics, photography, and horticulture. Which
that's a broad mix.
Yeah, exactly. It sort of scared the parents a little bit. I think they thought I was going to be taking photos of cars in parks and stuff like that. But I like being outdoors and doing all of that kind of stuff. So I sort of stuck with the horticulture side of it all and did the advanced certificate in horticulture at Holmesglen down in Victoria here. And for part of the requirements for that is you had to undertake work experience.
Yep.
I sort of started doing my work experience at my father-in-law's nursing home, and then found Spring Valley Golf Club. I ended up doing some work experience there for was supposed to be 6 weeks, and I think it ended up almost being 6 months. So,
Wow.
And that was at the time when John Sloan was in charge of all his courses down here, and one of the courses that he was in charge of as well was Long Island.
Okay. Yep. That's right next door to PK. Is that right?
Peninsula. Yeah, that's correct. And they had an apprenticeship going. And I'd fallen in love with it. I was an 18-year-old kid coming out of school, riding around on motorbikes and talking on walkie-talkies and stuff like that. So I was having a ball as a work experience kid. And sort of went down, and at the time Glenn Stewart was down as the superintendent down there, and I sort of had a chat with him, and he offered me an apprenticeship, and it sort of led in from there.
Wow. Okay, that's very good. And I think those of us who know, Glenn Stewart's now moved on to become the director of courses, I think is the title at Peninsula Kingswood.
Yeah, correct.
If I'm not mistaken. So he's obviously gone in through the world in the sandbelt there, and now is at what we know as the wonderful PK. So you spent a bit of time. How long were you there at Long Island for under Glenn before you sort of moved on a little bit?
Well, I finished my apprenticeship there, so it was in 1994 until 2000 I was down there. So Glenn was there for maybe a year and a half, and I think he then moved on to Woodlands at that stage, and his brother Shane took over at Long Island. So I sort of caught both of the Stewart brothers as my bosses while I was doing my apprenticeship, which was really good. So.
Very, very good.
Yeah, so I finished my apprenticeship there and started the advanced certificate in sports turf management at the time, and then in 2000 I moved to the Heritage Golf and Country Club as a groundsman. Was 2 minutes from home, so it was I was 2 minutes from home to get to Heritage, or it was a 45-minute to an hour drive down to Long Island. So it was, the long commuting was taking its toll, and it sort of took up the job there.
So the Heritage, just to check with people, so we're talking Spring Valley, that's sort of down the southeastern parts of Melbourne, and then Long Island's not far from there. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. It's a little bit further down towards Frankston.
Yep. And then
Long Island
we head to the Heritage, which is up the northeast, up the Yarra Valley. Is that,
correct.
Is that right? And that's the Nicklaus.
The start of the Yarra Valley, yeah. So when I first started there was just the Jack Nicklaus course.
Yep.
At the time, and then obviously later on they built the second course, the Henley course. So.
Right. So it's a two. So was it two courses when you were there?
No, it was just the one course.
Okay.
The other one hadn't started. The second one hadn't started yet. So St John's. St John's was the course.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's up the Yarra Valley. And did you find much of a difference in, I can assume so, but tell us, was there much of a difference in your learning a bit of your craft there and experience from going from a bit of the sandbelt to up the Yarra? I don't know the Yarra specifically. Are they different styles of how to maintain courses?
Yeah, it's a lot harder to dig holes out there, obviously being in the clay rather than on the sand, but it gets a lot wetter during winter. Obviously, being in the valley, also the weather conditions are a lot worse as well. It's always a couple of degrees hotter out that way and a couple of degrees colder. So there were times out at Heritage where you'd sort of get to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, it'd be foggy, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon it'd still be foggy out there. So
yeah, right. Okay, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, so the weather patterns were quite different as well. So.
Very, very interesting indeed. And was that a big team you were part of, looking after a Nicklaus course?
Yeah, look, I think there was about 17 of us there at one point, and that went up to 20, 21, sort of through the summer periods when we had the casuals come through. So,
wow.
Then obviously they built the second course, and then obviously we had the two separate crews on there, which was good. Right. So yeah, it was a big project.
Very interesting, and no doubt, obviously, there's standards and expectations with a Nicklaus name to a course as well. I don't doubt there would have been a pretty impressive workload and quality of golf course to be part of.
Yeah, correct. It was very interesting to see. They used to come out every couple of years and make sure that the standards were being upheld and all of those kind of criteria were being met. So it was always a bit of fun when they came out and you sort of got to talk to them. So it was very interesting.
Very good. And what position were you there when you were at Heritage, mate?
So I started off as a groundsman. I just got there as a groundsman's position and worked my way up to the foreman. on the St John's course, and then the assistant on the Henley course, and then assistant on the St John's course. So
Okay, right.
yeah, so slowly worked my way up from there.
And you found, how did you go then from being, I suppose, one of the team members to being a leader of the team as you moved in and bounced through? How did that sort of feel for you and unfold?
Yeah, it was a difficult thing because, you know, when I was the grounds, you know, I was one of the boys, always having the joke and always mucking around a little bit and all of those kind of things. So you sort of had to change the way that you do things and think about things. But it was a bit of a testing time. But I think the guys ended up getting used to it and realised what was going on. So it sort of made it a little bit easier as well.
And learning to, I suppose, manage team, keep a team together and pull everyone in the same direction, working together cohesively. They're sorts of skills that you learn, I suppose, as you step up. I know I did, so I can only assume that was a similar thing for then, you know, as you move on from a place like Heritage.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, it's, you know, working underneath Glenn and Shane, and then obviously Sam Moyle while at Heritage, they're very good operators. So I sort of learnt quite a lot from those guys. I suppose, especially towards the end of my time at Heritage, being there for so many years under Sam, he is an excellent operator. So learning from him, he's one of the best at what he was doing at the time. So it sort of made things a lot easier than what I thought they would be. So it was good.
Yeah, and you're always learning. I find, doesn't matter where you are in life, you're always learning.
Exactly
always learning
right,
something.
Yeah. Exactly.
So tell us more. Your assistant at the St John course, I think you just mentioned.
Yep.
Where to from that point, mate, for you and your career?
Well, obviously, 2015, the position at Eastwood came up as a superintendent. So I thought it was time for me to go out on my own and try and land on my own 2 feet rather than rely on other people all the time. So I applied for that and was successful in getting that, and I've sort of been there ever since.
So how long? So tell us a little bit, and we'll probably go into a little bit of Eastwood. So you had the desire, I suppose. You were looking for that next step, that challenge of, I want to put my mark on somewhere, the same as the people I've been looking up to so far in your career. Is that sort of how that come about? And you were looking around a little?
Pretty much. And I just thought I got to that point where I felt that I could do it myself and wanted to try and be a little bit, use my creative, my inner creative side and start being able to do things the way that I felt like doing them and trying to work that into it all. So I thought, obviously, going out on my own and trying to get a job somewhere else is probably the best way to do that.
I agree with you, mate, 100%. I remember when I was, going through that time when I was an assistant at a club and I was like, I just want to get my hands on it. I just want to sink my teeth into it myself. Yeah. And I want to be the person leading the team, delivering something special, making it a draw card, bringing, let's create a destination. And I want to be the one at the end of the day to go, you know what? That's a hell of a hard week of work, but my God, look at what we've done together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, completely agree.
And it's a wonderful challenge. And I think once you start doing it and you're reaping the rewards and you're seeing the team work together and you get that camaraderie in the workplace, all those things gel together. It's just, I find a wonderful feeling. I can only imagine, like you said, you've gone from the Heritage as well to Eastwood. So tell us a little bit about what Eastwood is and some of the parts of it for you and your time being superintendent there.
Look, it's a lot smaller the club than definitely coming from what Heritage is. A lot smaller budget, so you've got to think outside the box for trying to do a lot of things and making your money go as far as you can, which is very challenging. But I kind of find that quite enjoyable. But it's a great little course. It's at the foot of the Dandenongs. Sort of has its own microclimates because of that.
And so that's east of Melbourne,
yeah, correct.
City itself?
East of Melbourne. You're about 45 minutes to an hour east of Melbourne.
Yeah, right. So do you, incidentally, because I love the geography of golf courses and I like to hear about the stuff, and I haven't been there, like I mentioned to begin with. So you've got the Dandenongs from memory, as I Google Earth everything in my head as well. You've got the Dandenongs are to your east.
Yep.
Is there? I think they're about 600 and something meters high.
Correct.
From memory.
Yes.
They're not
yeah.
terribly tall, but do they? You mentioned, do you get much weather come off that? Because I'm used to looking after a golf course in the Blue Mountains, so we're on top of the hill. We were a kilometre in the sky, and that had all sorts of things. We used to, every now and then, we have 4 seasons in 1 hour.
Yeah.
And I know they say 4 seasons in 1 day in Melbourne. What do the Dandenongs you mentioned a microclimate. What sort of things do you get that you didn't get at the Spring Valleys and also at sort of up the Yarra at Heritage?
Look, we call it at the Eastwood mist. The drizzle tends to bounce off the mountain and just swirl around, and there'll be days where it's just that misty rain, when the weather's bad, and you drive 15 metres, 20 metres up the road sort of thing, and it's almost sunny. So I think we're up to nearly 1,200 mil of rain this year already.
Whoa,
so
wow.
We've had quite a fair bit this year. It's been a very wet year for us, but it's just interesting in the mornings, and especially those colder mornings when you might have a small amount of frost. We don't have as much frost as what we did out in the Yarra Valley, but because you've got the mountains there, it takes a lot longer for the sun to rise to get up to thaw everything out, I suppose, as well. So
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one of the things I was kind of going to ask you as well, is do they cast a shadow in the morning?
Yeah, very much so. So I think when we were out at Heritage, you had your view out to the Yarra Valley, and at 6:30 in the morning, the sun was shining on everything and you could see everything. Whereas here, it's sort of 8:30 before the sun gets up high enough to be able to start coming onto the course. So,
and from a maintenance perspective, that does change some of the things you have to do, doesn't it? I mean, you talk about, and I know in the mountains, similar in New South Wales and Western Sydney, it depending on particular small pockets and geography on the golf course. But if you have a shadow cast from anything and it doesn't get direct sunlight, you have the dew hanging around longer on a golf green. The leaf is then wetter for a much longer period of time before it starts to dry out. There's a longer period of, fungal disease pressure when it's able to grow in those conditions. All these are knock-ons that, like you mentioned in the Yarra, if you're getting sunlight on at 6:30, 7 o'clock, that's an hour and a half potentially sooner. So there are these little things that you've got to manage along the way that are little things you've got to think about too, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. The disease pressures are quite high. It's a lot of fusarium and anthracnose and stuff like that sort of hit us quite a lot. So we do need to keep our eye on it. We obviously try and remove the dew as much as possible on the greens and stuff on those mornings, and so we're always doing something in regards to that, just to try and protect ourselves from it.
Yeah, and these are the things that I think I like to try and educate and bring out in superintendents' roles and greenkeepers' roles of, these are the stuff we've got to keep an eye on. You guys are out there doing it every day, and the golfers are going, well, how come they're just, why is it that they're just using the dew broom and not cutting today, and it might be in the middle of winter or whatever? Why are you bothering doing that job? Because this is what we're just saying, is that hanging around, that moisture physically on the leaf is just a pool of life, effectively. Exactly. And these are the things that you've got to deal with, different to, like you said, other sites that you've been to. Mate, how did it feel being a super? Finally, obviously, you'd gone from Heritage to being at Eastwood, something you wanted to do. What was the feeling like for you for the first week, the first month of getting your hands on the team, getting in there and putting your direction on it? What was that like for you? Did you really revel in that job?
Look, I was very excited. I was very, very excited. Don't get me wrong, but it was a bit nerve-wracking, as most people would probably think that it is. All of a sudden realising that the decisions were up to me, and I had no one to fall back on if I wasn't sure about something. So, it was as excited as I was. It was a bit nerve-wracking. But as I said earlier, I was fortunate to work under, some of the best operators in the industry, in Glenn and Shane from Long Island, and then Sam at the Heritage. So those guys are really professional and knowledgeable, and I learned a lot from them, especially Sam in the later career as a foreman and assistant. So they made it easier for me, and they sort of shaped me as a super, and I'm sort of grateful for them for that. So.
And, mate, all those things, they do make a difference. We're all products of our own environment. And then I suppose, like you said, when you're out in the deep blue sea and you look around and there's not really anyone in sight, and it's just you, and you're answerable to those people above you, be it general managers and committees and boards. I mean, they're all staring at you going, touching wood, saying, where are we up to speed here? And what are we delivering for this time frame? It is a pretty impressive thing to do, but then equally, like you mentioned, quite daunting as well. Did you have to lean on peers much? Do you do that yourself in this role now where you're at? Do you, every now and then you catch up with some of those guys?
Yeah, I do. I speak to them every now and then. There's a few other superintendents that I'm quite friendly with, that we sort of that are around the area and stuff, that we sort of get a hold of and have a chat to and bounce things off. So I do that. I probably didn't as much at the start, because I thought, well, no, I want to try and do this myself, and I think I've sort of learnt my lesson a little bit in that respect, and I'm not afraid to ask for advice or help on things these days. So I'm always willing to have a chat to someone about something.
And I think that lends to the camaraderie in the industry. I think everyone's quite open, and they're welcoming to, catching up and asking questions and querying along the way. Just like you said, you bounce ideas off, usually with the local other superintendents around your immediate area too. So most people I know have those groups of people around nearby that you often catch up with once every now and then, or have a chat or whatever. And it's quite a good thing. A great part of the industry, I find, is getting to know those people around and catch up with from time to time.
Definitely. And I think that's where most of the Victorians are sort of, for the last couple of years anyway, we've sort of missed out on a bit of that, with conferences and all of those kind of things getting cancelled. So I think everyone's just hanging out just to try and catch up with everyone at some point. So
yeah, well, we were at the middle of this year, just gone in July or June, or one of the two, I think it was June, where no one from Victoria was able to come up at all to the conference, and it was last minute cancellations for everyone, because I know there was a few that I knew were coming up, that then it was just like, nope, can't happen, we're not allowed to go, or we can't get out, we can't get in. It's been a very challenging time, and we know socially within our own circles of friends and family how difficult it is. In a workplace, it's equally just as difficult as well, because like you mentioned, and like we just talked about, is you do lean on and catch up with and break down those things that you're trying to work through in the workplace. It's always good to have those ears to lean on from time to time.
Yeah, definitely.
Pete, it's wonderful insight hearing your journey, that you've gone from how you got into the industry and all the way up to becoming a super at Eastwood. I love, like I mentioned, love hearing all these bits and pieces about the courses you've been at, how they've operated, and what you've got there at Eastwood, and in the geography and the elements. Like I said, I really enjoy it, and I think it's a key to understanding that for those that want to go and visit Eastwood and play Eastwood, and what makes it quite unique. Tell us a little bit about Eastwood itself, in particular for golfers. Is it a parkland style course, separate maybe from the Sandbelt? I don't personally know. It's an 18-hole course. I know that. Tell us a little bit about some details.
Yeah, look, it's obviously a clay profile, so it does get very dry during summer and quite wet during winter. I think the last couple of years we've had very wet years, and obviously being in a lockdown with no golfers around, it was probably a bit of a blessing in disguise that they weren't out there, because there would have been a lot of complaining people, I think, with how wet they would have got their feet and not being able to use their golf carts. So we have been doing a lot to try and do some drainage work to improve the playability of the course in the winter months. We were planning on doing some in November, but obviously it was still too wet all the way up till now, basically, with how wet we've been. So that's been pushed off until January to get that done. There's still 11 of the original push-up greens from when the course was originally built. So they're always fun to try and maintain as well. Obviously, there's quite a bit of aeration and needle tining and stuff that we need to do in those, just to try and get the water penetrating through them. But
they're the best part of, what was it, the 60s? The course.
65, I think. It's 1966 they were originally built. So yeah, still 11 of the original greens there. So that's always fun, trying to keep them nice and firm and running smoothly. But so it's heavily tree lined. So there's obviously shade issues and a lot of debris around the course during most of the year. So obviously not just the mountains that are in the way, but obviously we've got a lot of the trees there that create a lot of issues for shade. So I think we had a couple of big storms in July of this year that sort of did quite a lot of damage up the Dandenongs, and the Dandenongs were out of power for 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it is. I think that storm actually played 18 holes of golf at Eastwood before it went up there, and we lost 27 trees that night.
Wow.
In the storm, and they were some of the largest trees on the course, which were just completely uprooted due to the force of the wind. So
that's incredible. And of course, that you guys in Victoria and particularly Melbourne have been hammered and poleaxed by a lot of recent storms in the last, 4 to 8 weeks, really?
Yeah, I think since then we lost 26 that night, and I think since then we've probably lost another 21 in the storms, sort of, and it's like I think we lost 6 last Thursday. So they just seem to dropping at the moment. It's just because they're so wet underneath, and most of them are just completely uprooting and just falling down. So which is we're sort of sick of chainsaws and chipping. But if you I'm telling you, if you need some firewood and some mulch at the moment, we've got plenty of it.
There you go. The call out for anyone in Melbourne that has a fireplace. If you need any wood, the guys need to get it off course. So if you're interested, turn up with your trailer. There you go. Yeah, mate, I'm sure you'll get a few people, hopefully, with that to help you out. But these are normally winter jobs as well. When the grass isn't growing, you don't have a lot to worry about. You'll have these things to, from time to time to cut up and clean up because you can afford that time. What's your crew like? What do you run there, mate? What have you got on course? Are you running how many people? How many staff?
Look, we've got 6 at the moment, and as of Friday just been, we just lost 2 of our apprentices, which have gone on to other jobs. So one of them's moved down to Peninsula Kingswood, and the other one's gone to the MCC cricket ground to work on cricket ovals. So we're sort of only 4 of us at the moment, plus the mechanic. So we're sort of we've got our hands tied at the moment, but so if anyone's out there that wants to do an apprenticeship, we've got a position available if you're interested.
Mate, well, put it out there. Again, another call out. Anyone who's thinking about, you've heard what it's like on some of these other episodes I've done of Keeper of the Greens, and you've heard Pete's story and what it can do and open up your career and where you can go and travel to. So there you go. It's always happy to put the call out there, mate, but that's a tough gig going from 6 to 4, and your workload is increasing. Not only with random damage from things you got to clean up, but also it's the growing season. No doubt you're finally starting to get enough temperature out there to get the grass to grow. And let's talk about some of the grasses. What grass types do you have across the different playing surfaces on course?
This one will keep you happy. We've got centre and fairways.
Yes. Woo! Fantastic.
And a mixture of the tees, there's some cool tees and obviously the Cooch centre and a Cooch tees as well. I'm trying to transition as many of them through into the centre as I can. There's obviously ones that are heavily shaded which aren't going to do so well, so we'll try some other things on those. We're slowly trying to transition them all into the centre and obviously the bent poa fairways and just a mixture of ryegrass and bent and poa in the surrounds.
Yeah, okay. So the bent poa greens with a bit of ryegrass on those blends on the surrounds as well, which it sounds actually quite similar to what we had in the Blue Mountains and some of the courses have up there, not just where I was at Katoomba. Very, very similar actually, and probably similar climates in terms. I know we'd never got the baking sun that you guys get regularly because you do push up into the high 30s in summertime, which we don't quite get in the Blue Mountains, but they're some of the challenges. And I'm going to ask you a question, and let's do it live. This is it, live question about your thoughts on Santa Ana and why are you continuing to put more of that through some of those areas on your course? What are your thoughts on it in particular? Because I've reported on others. Latrobe's just been doing some line planting of Santa Ana. There are other courses. I think Commonwealth might have been doing some as well, that are putting Santa Ana in. And we know it's just one particular type of cooch, and there's plenty of different options out there for people. But what are the reasons that you like it for your golf course? Because these things are site-specific as well. Why does it work so well at Eastwood, do you think?
It's obviously all the fairways with Santa Ana. I think they changed them through to Santa Ana in, I think it was 92. They were all cool season grasses, and I think the super at the time, John Coulsaw, was convinced the committee to convert them to the Santa Ana. So they're quite good conditions. Now I don't know whether they're because of the clay, it holds the moisture in them a little bit more, and it just provides a really good playing surface, and it's easy to work with. So,
do you find do you get the time to do much in terms, because the flip side or one of the detracting attributes of Santa Ana is that it does really thicken up. it really gets thatchy and really gets matty, and you kind of, if you have the ability to work it in terms of dethatching and scarifying, that it becomes better still. But it's only if you get the chance. And I know we didn't. And that was one of the difficulties with us at Katoomba, is I didn't have the availability of labour to do so, or the cost to do so. Are you able to do much of that, or are you in that kind of a similar boat?
Well, when I started in 2015, I'm not sure the last time they'd been done. So I tried to bring in I tried to get it through the budget to get this fairway scarified, and obviously it was a great expense to the club, and the club doesn't have a huge budget, but I sort of negotiated with them to try and get 9 holes done every year. So basically it would be a 2-year turnaround to get the whole course done. Unfortunately, that we got 9 holes done the first year, then we got rained out the second year, and then we were too wet again the third year. The fourth year, COVID happened, and we did the back 9 this year. So it's sort of taken 4 years to get the whole course done rather than the 2 years. So
and these are some of the challenges, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly right. So we obviously get contractors. We've got the contractors to come in and do that. So there's not too much for us to do other than a little bit of cleanup at the end, but it does make a huge difference. And they have, obviously, with the soil temperature only just starting to come up, so we're just getting some good recovery on those back 9 ones that we did a couple of weeks ago. So it's starting to come along quite nicely.
And like I say, that is the flip side. There are costs attached to those things. It's something that the surface gets better if you're able to do it, and that's a key, I suppose, ingredient to maintaining Santarana well. If you can do that in some sort of maintenance program to scarify it and keep that thatch level right down. It provides a wonderful service. I'm curious a little bit. You mentioned you're trying to get some of Santarana into your tees more. Is that it provides a good playing surface for you guys there at Eastwood as a tee surface?
Yeah, it does. It's obviously the par 3 tees that we've got the Santarana on. They're quite small tees, so they tend to get chopped up quite a fair bit. So this time of year and going through the growing season, they sort of recover a lot better. During the cooler months, we need to oversow them. Obviously, they get, as I said, the smaller par 3s, they get chopped up quite badly, but we get good recovery on them. This year's been a little bit trying with it because of the soil temperatures and the temperatures that we've had, but they're starting to come along now. But there's going to be a couple of holes that we'll need to leave as cool season just because of the shading and the environment around them. But that does provide a good playing surface for us.
And that's something that golfers can sort of try and keep an eye out for as well as they move to around the course. They traverse their round of 18 holes. It's particularly in winter, it'll stand out more where you've got those cool season areas, won't it? Because they'll be bright in colour as opposed to the Santarana, which will be dormant. So they can see what parts are actively growing, and they might get a little bit more of a different bounce or play as they hit the ball through those areas too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very much
so. Something to keep in mind. I like to bring that out of a golf course so people are aware when they go and play that there are those different parts to specific areas on the course, which is always good and interesting to see as well. Mate, tell us a bit of some of the site characteristics of Eastwood. Does it got a few bunkers around the place? Do you have any water bodies there? Is it a hilly course, or, like I said, I know nothing. So tell us as golfers, we want to come and visit, what we're going to experience.
Look, it's undulating. I wouldn't say it's hilly. Some people, the older people, say that it's quite hilly. There's a few holes that it's up and down. So there is a bit of undulation through the course. There's, I think, about 42 bunkers, which aren't necessarily the best bunkers in the world, but we did start a program of putting bunker liner in those. So we've done four holes now with the custom bind.
Okay, how are you finding that as a product of performing?
They're the only bunkers that we don't have to get in and do anything to after we've had any storms. So
there you go. That's enough said.
Yeah, exactly right. It's just get in, rake them, and move on. All the other ones we've sort of got to be pushing the sand up the faces and all of that kind of stuff. So they make a huge difference.
Worthwhile investment, obviously.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So they sort of toss up, but it depends on how wet a winter we have to what we try and do. Like, obviously the last 2 years have been quite wet, so we're concentrating more on the drainage on the on the fairways and stuff to try and keep it a bit more playable during the winter months. If we have a drier winter, they'll start going, okay, well, we need to work on the bunkers, and they tend to push to try and get the bunkers done. So it sort of jumps a little bit, but it's something that we can manage. So it's not too bad.
That's good. I'm a bit curious, mate. How busy as a golf course are you? Do you are you part of this wave of post-COVID sort of stuff where you're getting, 150 players a day, or was that normal for you previously? Where's the course and club sitting now in terms of traffic?
Yeah, look, we did get really busy there. It's died off a little bit, but not that much. It's obviously made our life, as you'd know, hard getting jobs done and the spraying done with all of the golfers that are out there at the moment. But I think we're up towards the 60,000 rounds a year. So
yeah, right. So it's quite busy.
Yeah, obviously the main comp days, the Saturdays and the Wednesdays and now the Thursdays are probably starting to be the busiest days on the course, and then they just filter through for the rest of them. So, and
are you public access as well?
They have opened it up to public access at certain times. Obviously the non-comp times and out of the busy peak times, but they do open it up now to green fee payers and all of those kind of people coming in. So yeah, they do.
That's good. So next time I'm in Melbourne, I can come and play if I'm on the right day. I don't need to be invited as a guest of a member. I can bring up and
you can, but see. You can give me a call and I can try and organise something for you.
No, that's all good, mate. All good. It's just, I think it's nice to know, because we often talk about courses that are great to experience or great to play, and Royal Adelaide was one I just recently spoke with Nathan Bennett about, or we talked, Sanctuary Cove up there with Paul McLean at the Pines. Some of these courses that are great to experience have that limited access, extremely limited access, where unless you're invited by a member, you don't get that chance. So I often like to try and highlight as well which courses are open to public access, because yes, it's great to talk about all these sorts of things, but sometimes it can diminish a little bit at the back end when people go, geez, I really want to experience it. Oh, yeah, no, I can't.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to highlight which courses we do get access to. And we talk about the Barn Bugles of the world and that sort of stuff, which are fully public access golf courses. And I think to highlight that point, it's good to know that in Melbourne there at the foot of the Dandenongs, we can get out to Eastwood and on a day that it's open to play from the public, and we can go and experience and enjoy it, mate. Great stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, mate, this is a great question, because I always used to do this, every day, if not every second day at work. I want you to be able to tell us as a visitor to the golf course what you see every day, more or less, as one of the best locations to just get and soak up Eastwood, what Eastwood is. Have you got somewhere on the course that you really enjoy, that as a player, if we come and visit, we go, right, I've got to remember when I get to the 7th tee just off the side, I've got to view this way to go and check out. What's a spot? Because you know it so intimately. Tell us what a wonderful spot is on the golf course where you can just soak it up.
In the mornings, I think when you get those good sunrises is if you get there at the right time. You stand on the second tees and you're looking across the little body of water that's in front. It's a little par 3. And you got that Dandenongs. You're looking straight towards the Dandenongs, and all of a sudden you're getting the sun popping up over the Dandenongs.
Nice.
That can be quite nice when you get those really red sunrises in the morning. So that's probably my favourite spot.
Beautiful.
Down there. So yeah, it's
nice.
It's good at that on those mornings.
And early into the round, so you can be early enough out there and really take that in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, always nice to know, mate, because like I said, when people visit, we like to see some of those things that we might not know is there. So a morning game, it's not super early, but a morning game, a morning round at Eastwood's very nice by the sounds of it.
I think it's probably the spot that I post most of the photos from, sort of around that area in the morning. So if I'm posting any pictures on my Instagram and stuff like that, it's usually from down there somewhere.
There you go, mate. Incidentally, where can we follow you? Where can we follow you? What's your Instagram handle?
At Pete Cawsey, I think, or at Pete Cawsey.
Pete Cawsey, yep. And you'll probably see some of the shared photos through Eastwood Golf Club's page anyway, I think. So there you go. Get on if you want to know more about the course and see some of the good stuff before you get a chance to go there. Go and follow Pete. It's always good to hear those locations, and I find it really interesting. One cool part, and this is kind of where we also got in touch early on, mate, is this sculpture, this wooden piece of art I want you to tell us the story that you told me over the phone. Tell us what this piece of art is. Tell us how it come about, how it was actually done, and where it is on the golf course.
All right, it's adjacent to the first tee. So you're standing on the first tee. It's sort of the front left-hand corner of the first tee. So you're sort of standing on there, and all of a sudden you've got this, what looks to be a golfer hitting a golf ball at you sort of thing. But it's there was a large cypress tree there that posed a safety risk. This was back in, this project was done in 2015. So there was a cypress tree was deemed to be a safety risk, so they were going to remove it. But rather than doing that, someone came up with this suggestion of doing a wood carving out of it. And
wood carving out of what, the tree?
The trunk of the tree. So basically the trunk of the tree is still in the ground. They've cut the top half of the tree off, left the trunk, and then they've got a chainsaw sculptor to come in, and out of that they've sculpted a golfer hitting a golf ball, a golf bag, and there's another sort of stump with a kookaburra sitting on it. So,
mate, I've seen some of the photos, and you were kind enough to send me some really nice photos, actually, early morning stuff, I think it was, because I wanted to know about it. I'd mentioned some of this bit of Eastwood, and I couldn't wrap my head around that. One, it was done by a chainsaw, which I still can't get my head around, to the level of detail that's in that sculpture, and it's from a stump that was just sitting there still in place. It hasn't been transplanted to that location and done somewhere else. It was done there.
Yeah, exactly.
On the ground.
It was always, as I said, it was done before I was there, but they had the scaffolding around it, and I think it took him 2 weeks to do it.
Wow.
So it took 2 weeks to complete. So there's a fair bit of work involved in it, and it's actually, I'm not sure what the ruling is. I think it's still classified as a tree. So if you hit your ball in the way of it, you still got to play it how it is, sort of thing. So
it's a really unique piece of the golf course, and something that's a very much outside the box thought from the club.
Very much so. So there was, as I think I said to you on the phone the other week, there was a row of, probably in between the first and the 10th tees, they sort of run parallel with each other, and there was a row of another 15 or so trees in between the two that sort of hedged it off, and they were the same sort of size cypress trees, and they were all deemed, they got some disease in them, and they were all deemed unsafe as well, and they had to be removed. And there was a joke going around at some point that we were going to get the guy to come back out and sculpture a different golfer on each of the tree stumps, but it was obviously a big cost. They didn't end up doing it, but that could have looked quite interesting, I think.
That would have been a bit more like an art gallery, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly right. There was talk of them, someone mentioned, they should put Jack Nicklaus and all these other people, Greg Norman and stuff, and try and do that, where they have like an avenue of honour type thing, but it never came through.
It never came to be. It would have been a hell of a cost, and it would have been pretty impressive to see. I'm thinking of Melbourne's version of the Hills with all the art that's around in New Zealand. So
I said it'd be like the statues they've got at the front of the MCG of the footy players and the cricket players. So exactly right, exactly. But the one that you do have is a standout. I said, not having been there, I really do enjoy hearing these unique parts of golf courses and what they have, and that's something very, very special for the club. And also, if you're a visitor, I'm sure that you would be sitting there going, I've got to take a photo of that, because some of the detail, I still can't believe it was done with a chainsaw. I don't get it, but it's very talented. It's pretty impressive. It's
very talented. Very, very impressive, mate. And look, I suppose looking ahead, your time, what sort of things are you looking to improve for the golf course, say, in the next 12 months? You mentioned a bit of drainage stuff that's been delayed. What sort of things can we look forward to if we've been a visitor in the past and we're looking to come back? What sort of things are happening for Eastwood?
Well, look, obviously, as I said, we're doing those drainage projects. We've got a few new pieces of machinery that are supposed to be turning up shortly. So that's very good for us.
Yes.
I'd like to do the irrigation system, but that's probably, we've still got this irrigation system that's been put in there in 1975, and it's still the same one. So it's
wow,
bit of a handful, but that's another argument for another day, I think. But
well, you've done a little bit of an upgrade. Was it the third tee?
Yeah, we've
done an upgrade
adding and upgrading a few of the issues that we have. But it's one of those ones. I think we turn the system off during winter and then turn it back on as we come into the season where we start needing it again. And I think in the first 4 weeks we had 7 breaks and seven sprinklers that we had to fix. So it was
actually that's an interesting statement you just made when you say, I heard this from Superintendent Ben Lucas at Tuggenwell when I went and caught up with him a few years ago on the Murray. He said something similar to me, and coming from the Blue Mountains and in Sydney, we don't get to turn it off. You just said then you turn it off for. Is that actually what you do? Literally?
Yeah, we switch it off, and if we need to water anything in or anything like that, we'll start it back up again. But it's just to reduce our time of doing any repairs across the winter months because what's happening with ours at the moment is all the glue joints from the original glue joints are just started to give way. So I think if we left it on during winter, we'd probably spend most of our time doing irrigation repairs. So we just shut the system down. So just try and protect it a little bit.
Sitting there static at full pressure, you're going to test it every minute. So you don't need that.
Yeah, exactly. So we just shut it off and forget about it, and then remember all those areas that we forgot to fix up last year when we turn it back on again the following year. So
well, mate, hopefully that's something that like you mentioned, it's something that the club's thinking about, and I'm sure that they've got your advice along the way, and no doubt that, look, all these things are part and parcel of maintaining a course, aren't they? You do have your challenges.
Yeah,
you do have your challenges.
Yeah.
But look, Pete, I've really enjoyed having you on the podcast. It's been wonderful to chat and hear your story, and certainly the courses that you've experienced and you learnt your trade through there. I didn't know any of that, so it was great learning some of that with the Spring Valleys and the people you'd worked under and Heritage, and now you've got your own range at Eastwood. I think hopefully this has put Eastwood somewhat on the map a little bit for people to want to visit. I know I had some comments from some of the people that follow me on social media that said, I'm 20 minutes from Eastwood. I've never played it. I might think of it going out there now. So,
yeah, nice.
Mate, I do hope that they get to go and enjoy it. And, mate, I really appreciate your time coming on and getting your story out there. It's another piece to Keeper of the Greens, and I certainly hope, you get a couple of people saying, look, I want to come and have a sticky beak at Eastwood, and they've got to know a little bit more of you and your story.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Not a problem, Pete. Thank you very much for being on.
Not a problem. Thanks, mate.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed that segment, Keeper of the Greens, brought to you by Australian Turf Analysis. I really enjoyed having a chat with Superintendent Peter Cawsey from Eastwood. Now, there's a golf course you may or may not have played before in the eastern parts of Melbourne, so why not get down there and have a round, and I'm sure you will certainly enjoy it down there at the foothills of the Dandenong Ranges. Always something a little bit different to hear from someone who's looking after a golf course that may not be so well known as some of the bigger places around, certainly in and around Melbourne, which we do know down the southeast in the Sandbelt and the Mornington Peninsula. It's like I said, it's always, and this isn't a segment about just the big stuff, the big courses, the ones that we've all heard of. This is about trying to show you guys some of the details about some of the other courses around and some of the people behind those courses. So it was great to have Pete on board, and I really enjoyed having a conversation with him about his story and Eastwood as well. So thanks to Pete, and I hope you guys enjoyed it along the way. Now, please like, share, subscribe. If you feel so, send me a message and let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear you, have a bit of feedback, have a chat about a few things. And of course, don't forget to check out the website of our partnership with Australian Turf Analysis. Head to www.australianturfanalysis.com, where you will find out what they're all about and how they can help you look after and maintain your course better with their aerial survey technology, looking after turf health and a few other bits and pieces that they are able to do. So always in support of our partners here at the podcast and the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast, which is great to have on board. But that's the end of another segment of Keeper of the Greens, and I look forward to catching up with you next week. You hit them clean and we'll keep them green.